So one of the really intriguing findings in scientific research on these practices relates to resilience. And we think of resilience as how quickly a person can recover from adversity. When you recover quickly, you are more resilient. And it turns out that we can measure this in really interesting and hard-nosed ways, including measuring it in the brain, measuring it in the body. And the speed with which a person recovers from adversity turns out to be a remarkably important predictor of all kinds of interesting things. In recent data that we are working on, this is in a very large national sample, we find that for people in their 70s, the speed with which they recover from adversity is a really robust predictor of longevity. So it's not only psychological well-being, but as Rinpoche was alluding to earlier, it actually affects our physical condition, our physical health. A second thing to point out here is when we're doing a practice like this and we are listening to sound, at the same time we are aware in the background that pizza is coming into our mind or whatever else our monkey mind is generating, we're cultivating something that scientists call meta-awareness. And meta-awareness is a kind of monitoring function of the mind. And we know something about the brain mechanisms that are associated with meta-awareness. And meta-awareness is knowing what our minds are doing. And how many of you have had the experience of reading a book where you're actually reading each word on a page, and you may read one page, may read a second page, and after a page or two, you have no friggin' idea what you've just read? And the moment we realize that is a moment of awakening, a moment where meta-awareness is present. And so this quality of meta-awareness is, we think, really important for any kind of transformation. And there's more and more evidence to suggest that the cultivation of meta-awareness will benefit many other kinds of skills because it's strengthening this really basic quality that everybody has, but we don't recognize we have it. And when we recognize it, we can become more familiar with it, we can nurture it, and we can come back to it, rest in it, in a more spontaneous way. So one of the really intriguing scientific studies that is relevant to this was done a number of years ago by a group of psychologists at Harvard. This was done in the United States with several thousand people. And what they did is they took advantage of the fact that most of us these days carry around smartphones, and they texted people, of course, with their permission, and asked them essentially three questions. The first question is, what are you doing right now? And people had to check off from a list of activities what they were doing. Second question, where is your mind right now? Is it focused on what you're doing, or is it focused elsewhere? And the third question is, right at this moment, how happy or unhappy are you right now? And here's what they found. The average American adult spends 47% of her or his waking life not paying attention to what they're doing. 47% of the time. And when people are not paying attention to what they're doing, they are significantly less happy. Even if what they're doing is kind of a mundane task of daily living. And the title of this scientific paper is "A Wandering Mind is an Unhappy Mind." And this is, I think, really important, and the kind of practice that we just did is a really simple practice that we can sprinkle through our everyday life to help nurture these capacities, which as Rinpoche described, we think are already there, so to speak, but we are so pulled by all this external information in our environment that we don't recognize it. We don't bring our awareness to it, and so it goes unnoticed.